We're on the questions, and I have us down to number 12. Is that correct?
I think one right.
Yeah.
Is that right? All right. Good,
I
good.
marked it. Get my stuff together. So that's chapter 4. It's page 5. Don't look at her book. It's what this is.
Let's begin our class this morning with a word of prayer. Steve, would you direct us in prayer, please?
Father, thank you for giving us this Lord's Day, and thank you for the ability to be able to come together and worship you, Father. We're so thankful for the love that we have in Christ, and He strengthens us every day, Lord. We thank you for this ability that you give each one of us, Lord, as we prepare at this time. Thank you for His brothers, Lord, keep them straight. Thank you so much for loving us. We do this now in Christ's name.
Amen.
Is that right?
Before we begin continuing, going to number 12, does anyone have any questions or comments about some of the things we talked about last week? We want to be sure that we don't leave any stone unturned. Okay. Of course, chapter 2, Peter is encouraging us to be sure that we know the benefits of our Christianity, to know that we need to grow as Christians, and that we have responsibilities as Christians. And this is probably the main thrust of his writing this entire epistle. So, chapter 2 goes into our duties and responsibilities and some of the benefits that we have from our Christianity. Number 12 in our questions is how are we to use our freedom in Christ? This comes from verse 16.
That's number 13.
Oh, okay, I must have my numbers mixed up here.
How are we to use our freedom in Christ is number 13.
We are at 13.
Well, 12.
Okay. Then my numbers are mixed up. I'm a number off. I'm saying that my number 12 question is talking about the freedom in Christ, number 16. Okay. So
It is 13. You're right.
I'm totally confused.
Section 12, which has a
But this is the right question. How are we to use our freedom in Christ? That is the right question, right? Okay.
No, we on number 12.
What is the duty of it?
What is
Okay.
our duty toward the governments of men?
Okay, I thought we talked about that last week. Did we not? Okay. Well, let's jump back.
kind of deal.
My numbering system is off. If I have that as my number 11.
Yeah, you remember that.
My numbers are off. Now, I'm just going to fix that right now because that can be a little bit confusing. All right. The real number 12. What is our duty toward the governments of men? I thought we talked about that last week. Perhaps not. We did? Or did not?
We did a little bit. We did a little bit.
Okay. Did we? Okay. We talked about Jesus' response as to how we deal with government. Is how do we deal with the government as far as Christ is
Render
concerned?
unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Right. And of course, we know that the Pharisees were trying to trap Christ into saying the wrong thing, which they did that all the time, didn't they? And but we are to submit to the government. And we did also talk about when we don't submit to the government, and that is when man's laws contradict God's laws. And I have heard our government leaders make the statement that the laws from the Bible are not, do not take priority over the laws of the land. And that's not true. The laws of God, laws of the land are because of the laws of God.
Right.
they're supposed to be according to the laws of God, but it didn't work out that way. That's what the founding fathers intended for it to be like,
Yeah.
of course. Turn to First Peter chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. Let's read this passage. Peter kind of lays it out for us in a better way. He tells us that we do need to follow the laws of man. This is the will of God. Verse 13, therefore submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the kings as supreme, or to governors, or to those who are sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers, for the praise of those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. So what Peter is saying here, God enforces man to obey the laws of man. Because even though they may be evil people, not evil people, but non-Christian people, the purpose of the laws is to keep calm, to keep control, to keep chaos from taking place. And we know what happens when control is lost in an area. Is completely conflict between the people. Some of you may remember, this took place, was it last year or year before in Seattle?
2020,
Pardon?
2020 in Seattle.
Yeah.
And again this year too.
It did happen again this year. One group took over a great part of that city, and it was told, and they had no intention of letting it go. And that's what happens when man's laws are not enforced.
So sanctuary cities are falling in
Yeah, and that is so true.
It's called anarchy.
Yeah.
One of my main concerns is, like during these Bible times, the citizens did not have any choice whatsoever in the selection of their government. And
Right.
like in Romans, it also talks about how we're supposed to be submissive to government and to the rule of law. But we have a responsibility and a choice now of trying to help select our government. Not even a lot of times hear Christians say, well, I don't vote because neither one of the candidates are very good. But we do have input in the government that will decide the laws that we have to follow.
Well, if you go back and you study your governmental system that we have, of course, we have an indirect democracy. We vote people to vote for us.
A republic.
And in Greece, I think, was the only country that actually had direct democracy, where every person actually voted for decisions that were made. When you look at how democracy is supposed to work, we do make the laws ourselves. We put people into office to do that, to represent us in that process. So when you stop and think about it, the laws that are enforced, they're our laws. They don't belong to the king, or they don't belong to the president, or they don't belong to Congress. They're our laws. We basically indirectly put them there. But, a lot of people feel that because they don't get their way, people who make that statement that you were just talking about, I'm not going to vote because neither one of the candidates are good, that's somebody that's not getting their way. And so when people who don't get their way just throw up their hands and quit and don't take any part of it whatsoever.
And then complain all the time.
Right, and those who do not vote are the biggest complainers that we have.
And they have
well,
no
when you-
right to complain.
And my thinking is, if you're not part of the system put it into place, you have no right to complain about it. You're absolutely right.
But not voting is a vote.
Pardon?
When you don't vote, you have voted.
You have
Vote for the
chosen.
bad guy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have- yeah.
You made a choice, right?
It's known as suffrage.
In the last inauguration of President Bush, we went to Washington for that inauguration. Kids were still in high school. Mandy's class was invited to go to this inauguration, so we take off to Washington. Next door to us in the motel that we were staying in Washington, well, down that whole line, the motel rooms were filled with demonstrators. They came there for the purpose to protest the fact that they were putting President Bush back in office for a second term. Now, the Constitution gives demonstrators a right to demonstrate. And you can't take that away from them because the Constitution gives them that right. But you can bet your bottom dollar, those people that are demonstrating did not vote. Because a voter understands the winner, the loser, you live with the results. Those who do not vote do not want to live with the results. Okay? And and they caused the chaos. And believe me, these guys caused problems that next day in Washington. Pat and Mandy tried to get into that group to get to the White House or to the Capitol for the inauguration. And of course, police were everywhere, the soldiers were everywhere, and they actually detained one person close by where Pat and Mandy were because he had something in his pocket that looked like a weapon. So they just completely took him out of the picture because there was a chance that something could go wrong. He was looking for trouble. We were stuck in the 9th Street tunnel for about 3 hours, I guess, 2 or 3 hours, because the police and the government had shut down the tunnel because some idiot parked their van in front of the White House with 20 gallons of gasoline in it going to explode in front of the White House. So they stopped traffic. People like that is what causes the problem. And to demonstrate against government that is calm. Our government, if it ran efficiency, would be calm and everybody would be calm around it. Unfortunately, you got those who absolutely will not. And that's something we have to deal with pretty much every day.
One thing I'd like to add to that is, we kind of put a summary statement on government, as far as honoring the government, unless God's law is put into question. We always follow God's law.
We always follow God's law. We have countries today who do not accept any type of religion whatsoever in their government. We send missionaries over there to still teach Christ in those areas, and they have to do it in secrecy. I'm friends with a man, his name is Wayne Berry, and we supported him at the last church we worked for many years. He is retired now, and he would go over into the Middle East. He would go over into Thailand, in that area, and teach in areas where the government did not allow teaching. They met by candlelight at night with their windows closed and drapes over their windows. They did everything in secrecy because if they had been caught, they would have been shot. So, if that were to happen here, if our government came up and said, okay, no more religion, there will be no more religion, what are we going to do? Are we going to follow that?
No, sir.
Or we're going to continue to worship? We'll just have to start doing it the way they do. We will have to start hiding when we worship. We will have to start doing it in places and times where they are not and cannot see us worship. But we will still continue. And of course, prayerfully, that day will never come for us. But it is happening today in some places.
Well, we're changing a little bit. We're having some freedoms come back.
Yeah.
That we didn't have before.
And I think that runs in cycles. If you go back and look at our history, American history, the Gilded Age, y'all studied about the Gilded Age. Religion was very low during the time of the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age was right before World War I. When World War I came along, religion took a big boost because people were fearful and they turned to the one that could help them with their fear, that being God. Well, after World War I, people began to get loose again. They began to get back into worldly again, and religion took a big tumble. Well, here comes World War II. At the end of World War II, religion was more popular in the United States than it ever has been in the history of the country. In fact, the Church of Christ in general, at the end of World War II, between 1945 and 1955, was the largest growing religious group on the earth. And now it is one of the smallest growing groups. I'll talk about percentages now. Of course, we don't have numbers like the Catholics and the Baptists and things like that, but percentage-wise, we are the lowest growing group that there is. Why is that? Well, we've been at peace for a long time now. We don't have anything to be fearful of now. Until recently, when Russia's barking nuclear. China's barking nuclear. People are starting to think about, you know, if this happens, we're in trouble. You know, so now we start thinking about, we need someone who can get us out of this, and that would be God. So religion is beginning to make a comeback in our country because of that. So it's a cycle. That's why I say it's a cycle.
They say there's more Bibles being sold now. There's been a great increase in the number of Bibles that are being sold.
Well, I think
We just
that's,
need to get them into the church.
yeah, that's wonderful though. Because, you know, you give a man who's interested in the Bible, you give him enough rope, he'll hang himself. He'll convict
You don't
himself.
say it like that, but yeah, we want to win him over.
Yeah, that's how what you want to happen, yeah.
But Farron, while we may have had these dips between, you know, the peaks of being more focused on God and then a slump, I don't think, I mean, I'm not sure, but I don't think that we've had men running for positions for, the mayor, like the mayor of Minneapolis that's running now, the man that's running, and the man that's running for mayor of New York. These are two candidates that detest Christianity, and we see where we're having cities shut down, not even following federal law, but shutting down the entrance of the ICE members, like in Chicago. And that's not the only city, there are others. We're having people come into leadership positions of, you know, these entire cities that detest
Yeah.
Christians.
And you're absolutely right. If we have that starting to happen within our federal government, and it's already starting to happen within our federal government, that's when laws can actually be changed that affects everybody. You know, it has been in discussion for a long time to end the Constitution as we know it and write a new government for us to be governed by. And it will not have in there the protection for religion that our government has now. It's bound to change, you know, and that's just really sad. Yes, Wayne?
The Obama administration and the Biden administration have all been anti-Christian.
Oh, absolutely.
And all of them are persecutors now.
And you know, the saddest thing about
They
that,
want to wipe us out.
the saddest thing about that is Biden will tell you in a heartbeat, he is 100% dedicated Catholic. There's no way. Not come across like that. No way. So it's really sad. And that, as the Indian says, that's white man speaking with forked tongue. You know, that's about how you have to look at that. Yeah. Anyway, we still have a duty toward our government. And when Peter wrote this, and Paul makes reference to it too, they're not put in place for evil. They're put in place to keep things under control, to keep the government calm, to keep the nations calm. And even though they may not be Christian, their basic intent is good. And if their basic intent is good, we must follow that. Until their basic intent is like what Maureen's been talking about, when they're trying to just totally do away with religion, period. Then we've got to take a stand and say, we're not going to allow this. Yes, ma'am.
I know I'm getting in late, but this is why I believe that Christians ought to be involved in politics. Some people think that we should not be involved, but if we are ruled by those that are not godly, then they're going to rule us in godly, ungodly ways. If we are involved in politics, I believe that we can put godly in there and be a godly influence.
I agree. You know, if you go to the polls to vote, you're involved in politics, whether you like it or not. Now, I have preached political sermons before, and it's usually around election time, because you know, you're going to hear on every street corner, separate your politics from your religion. If you do that, you're going to destroy yourselves. You can't separate politics and religion. Your religion needs to manipulate, to shape, and to form your politics. That's how it needs to happen. Unfortunately, the world looks at it basically right the opposite. Don't let your religion overshadow your politics. And that's a big problem. Yes, sir.
Who would have thought a man had to stand up and say, there's only two sexes,
Yeah,
male and female?
Yeah.
Who would have thought that we got to the point where it's like,
and you know, if any of you have gone through, like, you're taking out a loan, or if you're doing you're getting involved in a particular organization or something, the question used to be sex, male or female. Now they have the word transgender on there, and they have the word other on there now, that you can write in something else if you so want.
It's
Isn't
not
that sad?
a non-binary, you know, people believe
Right,
that,
right.
you know, they go by, not him or her, but them, and they.
Well, it's fixed stuff. Fixed stuff, right.
I won't tell you what I call people like that. We can go there. It's sad though that the world has turned into that. We've turned that way. It's really sad.
There are high schools that are letting our children relate to the animals, the cats. And back in Alabama, two of the schools up there demanded there be a litter box in the restrooms.
They
That-
have them. They
that
have
blew
them in
me
the
away.
north everywhere. You can go into stores up there.
Is that happening here too?
Oh, I don't know.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
happening in
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
Did y'all hear
Yes.
Pat what she was talking about?
furries.
Yeah, they're
Furries,
furries.
yeah.
They consider themselves cats, and so the high schools are
Or
putting litter
dogs,
boxes
or
in the bathrooms for these
Pigs
people.
or whatever.
Isn't that ridiculous?
These are in
Absolutely
our
ridiculous.
high schools, and I think it's at one of our local high schools too.
Right.
I was
Where
told.
we used to live. Wow.
No, and here,
Oh, is it
here
happening
in close to Albany.
Don't they have it at Lee County?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I
A
heard.
little good news, there are some states considering, but I think it was Texas and Arkansas has passed a law, but the public has to do it, they can now put the Ten Commandments back up in classrooms.
Well,
But
that's
the
refreshing.
public
Yeah.
has to purchase that, and donate it to the school, and the school will then have to put it up, have to post it. So that was a good thing. And there are other states that are considering, I don't know if Georgia's one of them or not, but they spoke specifically of Texas and Arkansas that has passed this law.
Well, that is a step in the right
So maybe a little
direction.
more common sense is beginning to
Yeah.
creep back.
That is good news. Maybe we are taking a step in the right direction. I hope so. What else?
Oh, you know, my experience as an educator for about 25 years, I've worked, I taught at Monroe High School and Westover High School. We always started the day with a moment of silence, you know, and you could pray if you want to or so. And always when I was at a faculty meeting or so, prayer was offered, you know, and before the faculty ate a meal or so. So
I did like that about that.
there's still prayer in public schools.
Well, that's great. You know, of course, when you and I were in school ourselves, we began our day with prayer and a Bible reading alongside the Pledge of Allegiance, which they had just
They
added
do
under
that,
God.
but it's optional.
I understand they won't even do the pledge now.
Well, see, that goes back to Komatsu versus the United States in 1944.
Okay.
You know, you're not compelled to pledge allegiance, but it's, you know, highly suggested,
Yeah.
but it's optional, just like the prayer now is a moment of silence.
Well, it kind of degraded to that in our home, because we would pray at ball games, and then they changed the rules where if you had to pray at ball games, you had to be a student. Faculty couldn't do it. Had to be a student to pray, and then they took the prayer away completely. But when we would have a teachers meeting, and we always had them in our high school because we were right in the center of the county, they would always begin their meeting with a devotion and prayer. And I would always do that for them. But they would no longer allow us to pray in school or pray at ball games, but they would do it at their meetings. I mean, to me, that's just like, what's the word I'm looking for? I use two-faced, yeah. You're acceptable in some things and not acceptable in others, you know. Yes,
Yes, Farron, you know, even today, you know, after public high school football games, you know, this is not official, but a lot of the opposing players and coaches, they will meet in the middle of the field and pray.
I've seen
You
that.
know, and so you just don't have it in the beginning,
Right.
but you do have
Well,
it.
and someone will try to stop that though, because that is, in their own words, offends them. So I'm sure that somebody will try to stop that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think a good example of what I was talking about a while ago is, talking about the prayer at football games and all. In Baker County, and I know we have a bad reputation, some of the older people here knows their reputation, but anyway. At the Baker County School, we have had, and these are Church of God, but, you know, the Church of God, we have kind of had them creeping back into the school system. We've got a preacher on the school board, and he actually prays before the ball games publicly, over the intercom at the football games. He actually does that, and I think that's an example that if we become involved in, and all the experts tell you, start getting involved in your local governments.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go out and become president with your local, and I think that's an example, because now we're praying. I understand it's church God, but, there's a prayer offered
Yeah.
by an adult, not a student.
And maybe these are tiny steps moving us back in the right direction. You hope so. You have to hope that. All right. Well, dealing with governments can be difficult. And, but, you know, when it comes right down to it, we control the government because we put the people in who do. Okay? And I've never understood this. You know, who was it? I don't remember who was it came out with the moral majority. Who? It was,
Oh, that was,
he was a
Jerry Falwood.
Jerry Falwell.
Yeah, the Liberty Baptist
The
Church.
moral majority concept was brilliant. It did not work because the moral majority didn't follow. You know, if when you walk into that voting booth, which is not a booth anymore, if you don't walk in as a Christian, you know, I don't know how God's going to accept that when you stand before Him in judgment. You're not giving up your Christianity when you walk into a political voting booth. And if this country would vote their Christianity instead of their politics, we'd see bigger steps moving back in the right direction. You know, the last several elections, no doubt we put the wrong people in. Okay, no doubt about that. We see the results of it. Somebody didn't vote their Christian principles. Okay, that's what happened. If you don't vote your Christian principles, then you know you have damaged not only yourself, but you damaged the country as well, and that's what's happening to us today. We're not voting our Christian principles. Boy, I didn't need to get off on all that.
You're on number 12, and we're on 13.
Okay, well, 13 is how are we to use our freedom in Christ? Yeah. Which comes from verse 16, which says, as free yet using liberty as a cloak for vice, but as bondservants of God. You know, we are to put our Christianity into place, regardless of where we are or what we do. You know, that's a must, folks.
Be Christians.
Be Christians regardless of where you are or what your activity is, you know.
Well, and I think that's important to, like, when they prayed to God before they selected Matthias, before you go vote, pray.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
keep praying, you know, and I think, you know, in my personal opinion, I think that's how the United States became so powerful so quick. We are a young nation compared to the world, but I believe it's because there are so many Christians here, and we have had God first.
Well, the people who put our country together to begin with were, you know, they were godly, fearing Christian-oriented people. And that's obvious. Drive down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington. Look at the buildings. Look at the monuments. I mean, you see God everywhere. You see Scripture everywhere. You know, and they've been up nearly since the government has been established, and people put them there for a reason, because that's what our government was built upon. And unfortunately, it's just simply not true anymore.
In God we trust, that was added later on.
Yeah. You know, they're trying to take that out of the money, by the way. In fact, on some of our coins, they have put it on the edge now, and it's no longer on the front or back. It's along the edge where it cannot be seen as well. So that's one thing they've done to try to take that away from us.
Oh, Baron, it was really after World War II that under God was added to the pledge.
Right, you do that.
Because my mother, she gave me a little a picture of the Pledge of Allegiance that she got during the war, and it didn't have under God.
Right. If you ever, I know a lot of you do the surfing on the internet and whatnot. Yeah, maybe think of this. If you ever have an opportunity, go to the Red Skelton website and listen to him give you the Pledge of Allegiance. It is amazing. He explains every bit of the Pledge of Allegiance. When he gets to under God, he nails it to the wall.
There, I use that in one of my classes.
It's a great thing.
And you know, watching Red Skelton, you know, all these years, but he was famous for that. And when I was in high school at Westover High School, we had an assembly, and they gave us some things about about America, and it had his Pledge of Allegiance. But then I got it from one of the shows from 1969 and showed it to my students. But they didn't know who he was.
It'll just nearly make you tingle listening to it.
It was.
And another thing that is almost as good is John Wayne's rendering of America, Why I Love Her, and he mentions God in that as well. And he just nails it to the walls. Some great literature. And that's what we need to do, folks. As Steve said earlier, to be a Christian, you need to be a Christian everywhere, in every way. All right. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, folks. Let's go to number 14. And the real 14, okay? I hope, I'm going to read it. If I'm wrong, y'all tell me. What 4 admonitions summarize our duties to others? And this comes from verse 17.
Honor all people. Love the brother. Fear God. Honor the king.
That's all it says. That's all it needs to say, right? And you know, that tells me that we can do all of the above. What all we've been talking about in this class is summed up in that very last section, honor the king. We can do that as Christians. And we can honor each other as Christians. And, of course, we're going to fear God. Now, this fearing God, I don't know if y'all remember this a couple of weeks ago, I preached a sermon on this. There are 2 ways that you fear God. You have the reverent awareness of God and who He is, what He is, as our Creator, our Sustainer of life. And then there's the fear of God that you're just simply afraid of what He can do to you. We need both. We need to understand who He is, how great He is, how great He has been toward us, and at the same time, we need to know that with the flick of an eyelash, we can be gone if God so desired, because He has done that before. So we need to understand how to fear God in every way known to man.
Notice the last one, that is not a capital K.
No, it's not.
That's our president.
Yeah. It's whoever's governing you at the time.
Right.
Because had it been a K, it would have been Nero probably at this time, because this was probably written right before Nero had his fit in Rome and burned Rome. So we would have been Rome if that K had been capitalized, but that's not the case. It's whoever your leader is at the time.
We should also revere God.
Absolutely, reverence. That's the main thing. Because if you have reverence for God, you're going to have that. You're going to have the right kind of fear.
Yeah.
right, what is the duty of servants to their masters?
Be submissive.
Submissive in
Okay.
all fear.
Let's read the verse.
Doing hard.
Servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to do to the good and gentle, but also to the hard. Why would he throw that in?
Well, you got some masters that are good, you
Good.
got some that are harsh. They beat
Oh.
their servants.
You know, that's sort of a stigma that was given to the South as the Civil War progressed. That all Southern masters were horrible, that they beat their slaves, that they mistreated their slaves.
You don't ever hear it
That was generally not true. Now, were there some that way? Of course there were.
Even in the North.
Even in the North, right? Which is one of the biggest problems with the Emancipation Proclamation. It only released the slaves in the South. It did not release the slaves in the North. And there were slaves in the North just as there were slaves in the South.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now, is this a stretch to assume that in our current situation that this shows that we've got to be very submissive to like a harsh employer?
Well, if you view your employer as a master, and I guess in some ways they are, you know, I've always been taught you honor the position, not so much the person. In other words, you know, like we have presidents who have been very fine men. We have presidents who have been scoundrels. But you honor the office of the president because of what it stands for.
The office.
The office.
And what
Yeah.
it stands
Yeah.
for.
I think that's where you have to draw your line at. Now, if I worked for somebody who was hateful with me, mean with me, harsh with me, I'd walk away. I wouldn't stay with someone like that. You know. So I don't know, but a servant cannot do that with a quote master. You can't walk away as a slave. You know, of course, you know we've had slaves in the past. We know to run away and hide and release themselves that way. But that's I think is what this verse is saying. It was such a common thing in those days to have masters quote slaves. You show homage to them who sustained your life, even though if you have to work for them, they feed you, they put a roof over your head. You've got to give them a certain amount of respect and honor for that. Hateful, harsh people, you know, I really don't know how to answer that. Other than the fact, you know, Jesus said, be good to those who misuse you and abuse you. Maybe that rule comes into place right there. That you return goodness when you receive hatefulness. Maybe that's what this is referring to. I don't have a definite answer for that. Maureen.
Well,
It
Paul-
tells us to love our enemies, so when they wouldn't have to be our enemies, but they could fall in that category where you gotta love the heart.
Well, yeah,
To be pleasing to God.
and that word love, of
Is-
course, love has different levels of power. And that might be what it's relating to as well. I really don't know exactly what he could be referring to here, other than the fact that you honor the position because you're in that situation. You have to honor that position. Maybe so more so than the person. I don't know. Let me research that and see if we can come up with a better answer for that. All right, well, let's stop here, and we will begin with number 16. I'm going to circle it, and so we'll have the right place. And we'll start there next week, and we should finish this one next week and move on into chapter 4. Quick question or comments before the kids come in? Well, we've had a good discussion this morning. Thank y'all so much for your discussion.